how to beat Stoke City. That's the question we're asking on this week's episode of Where Rangers Walk. We're also looking at the Opta Stats and asking, are QPR massively over or underperforming based on the XG in games? Jared's also going to review the summer transfer window before we can start even discussing the January one, and which Championship managers do we rate? Should Marty get the heave ho? Welcome back, Jawad. International football, is it for you?
No. I've been to a couple of England games recently. It's so boring. Wembley is awful to get out of. Yeah.
QPR versus Stoke City then is certainly going to whet your appetite. Let's talk about the game itself and the starting 11. This is the team that the team that started, of course, 2 weeks ago against Leeds. With injuries, not obviously certain as to how far some players are along, but what would you do in terms of the starting 11? I think this is must win against Stoke.
I think with the injured players, you would absolutely hope 2 or 3 of them are back for that game. But there's the club keep things like that so close to their chest nowadays. We literally have no idea. Dembele picked up an injury before the Burnley game, and it looked like it would be a couple of weeks, but the rumours are it's going to be 2 or 3 months out. But you would hope there's at least 3 or 4 that started against Leeds that aren't anywhere near that first team. Liam Morrison's back fit, so maybe he'll come in as centre back, which will push Field back into midfield. Morgan's done well, but 3 games in a week was tough going for an 18-year-old who had never started a game before that. Lucas Anderson's been a shadow of the player that we saw last season. And Salah up front, we haven't got anybody else at the moment, so I don't really know what the options are with that. You maybe could play Paul Smith up there, but the lack of kind of physicality. So I think it all depends on the injured players.
Is this a must-win game?
I think it's the biggest game that we've had for a long time, actually. I think it's the first time in the club's history that they've not won any of their first 8 league home games, which is a dreadful record. The home form, as I keep saying every week on here, for years has been poor. And I think if you have nine home games against teams that really we should be picking up points against, and you don't win, then it's big trouble if we don't win.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at the Opta stats. Now, in terms of some good news, I suppose here, in terms of expected points, QPR are 4th bottom, so you're not as bad as as you
real
actually.
Table, yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
one at the end of the season.
You're not as bad as you actually are, because according to Opta, QPR should have 15 points. This is up to the game at the weekend. The actual points scored from those games were 10. So you can see, obviously you are massively underperforming. You didn't need me to tell you that. What is it? Do you think about the chances taken and the chances conceded in games? Does that first of all, does that match up to obviously what you've been watching in games?
I think
you are making shots and you are shutting out shots better than what you actually are.
I think the 5-point difference probably purely comes from the Plymouth and Portsmouth home games. Against Portsmouth, we had a couple of outstanding chances where the XG was going to be really high. Plymouth, they had 10 men for an hour. We dominated. We had chance after chance and just couldn't score. So I wouldn't be surprised if those 5 points were purely based on those two home games. In the other games, we haven't created much, I don't think. But those two, definitely, we deserve more.
Okay. I'm scared to ask this next question, but it is a magazine-style show, so we'll ask it anyway. Recruitment in the summer. We're going to ask you for your final grade on it, because previously we've asked you and saying, well, they're not ready. We've only seen bit parts of player, but come on, 15 games in now. Before we start talking about Christmas lists, come on, give me a final number. I'm going to predict it's dipped from the 7 you gave it, I think, before.
I don't want to stitch Michael up, but when we did this, Michael went, I want to say 10, but I'm going to go with a 9. That's what he said. And I said, we're a left-back injury and a striker injury away from it being an absolute disaster. And we had a left-back injury and a striker injury really, really early on. And even if just with those two things, the score would have dropped, but actually seeing the quality of player that we've brought in and seeing them over 15 games, it's an absolute disaster of a summer. Some of the players are just nowhere near the level required. And there's been talk on social media that someone like Nicholas Madsen, there were clubs looking at him, but they all decided he's too slow for the Championship. Not got the physicality, even though he's 6'4", yet QPR gambled on him. So I said it could be a 7.5. The injuries in two key areas where we only had two players, one left back, one striker, that's criminal. But then the standard of the players is going to be about a 2, and I think I'm being quite kind with that as well.
I think you're right. If it's just on the cellar alone, it might even just be a 1, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That's been kind to the man. All right. Finally, then this week, it's managerial merry-go-round season, of course, and across the EFL and across the footballing world, given it's the last international break. So Chairman City is their last chance to gamble and throw the dice. If Marty was to walk, which I think is probably more likely than him getting this sacked at the moment, which current Championship manager would you love to have at your club?
If you'd asked me 6 weeks ago, maybe at the start of the season, Mark Robins and Rob Edwards would have been high up on the list. I still think back. I think I've said before, if Michael Beale had left in that first instance when he was linked with Wolves, Rob Edwards had just been sacked at Watford, and I'm 100% sure QPR would have gone in for him. I think Des Buckingham's doing a great job at Oxford to get them up and get them competitive in this league has been fantastic to see. And I quite like people like Michael Carrick, always comes across well, I think. After what he's been through recently, I'm really glad that Liam Manning has turned the corner. Bristol City and is doing well. He always comes across well as well. There's a few, but I think if anything happened at QPR, I think Robins would be top of the list. I don't think we'd stand a chance of getting in there.
Okay. All right. Give us a shout as to what you think in the comments for that hypothetical question. Right. Good luck against Stoke. Then we'll have everything crossed that we're talking to you about the first 3 points at home. They are improving though, and our Stoke fans are a little bit buoyant at the moment. They are enjoying watching their football. This is not a Stoke side that are a pushover. So, yeah, I'm going to have to go for a 0-0 or a 1-1, I'm afraid, on this one, given...
I think we'd probably take that right now.
Right. Cheers for joining us. Enjoy the game.
Thank you.